Hi, Cody here, and today I'm going to walk through a video of the architect style Riff in 4 video. Uh, First of all, we're gonna look at the master box because I mix into it. You can see there are lots of stuff going on. The first thing is the Flowline 2. You can use any whatever utility plugin to boost the level. This is just for boosting the level. Yeah, it is much louder with that on. And the rest are just my usual master bus processing. The I'll keep these two on. They are mainly for the limiting and clipping to make it louder. Yeah, this is the default clipping setting in Flowline to mainly to cut the snare down 5 dB and maybe 1 dB on kick, and this is the default setting of the hybrid setting in Flowline 2. It is cutting 2 dB off a snare kick. And let's bypass this. And the first one is the knowledge style SSL compressor setting. Yeah, you can see 41 ratio, 0.3 attack and 0.1 release, and sidechain filter is at 121. The threshold is just adjust according to your level. Yeah, mainly cut down the snare when they hit. And the second one is the UAD tape. I found it boost. It probably do something to the low end to boost just a tiny bit, and maybe add some top end. And the next thing is the UAD Protec. I boost a tiny bit at 12K and a tiny bit at 30. Yeah, and I also find it make it just a bit tad louder. And the next thing is I cut some 4K because I found the symbols are kind of abrasive, and I cut around 100 and boost at 50. I find this kind of make the kick sound steeper, and some low and roll off at 25 hertz. Also, I'm cutting some mid by 0.3 dB. I find it just make it a bit wider. And next thing is another SSL cell compressor. Not doing too much, just kind of boosting the volume and do a tiny bit on compression on snare. The next thing is Saturn 2. This is kind of making a more difference. Yeah, I'm driving the second band. Uh, uh, the band here is doing from 300 hertz up to 20K. It's doing some saturation, and I'm only blending in around 20%. If it's doing that full, it will sound like this. Yeah, it's kind of too much. This is a trick I saw from Erman, who made the punk bass and gym bass. The guy who did that, and the rest I just showed you. And let's look into drum bass. You can hear there are lots of room over there, and some reverb. you can hear the drum bass is doing a lot of heavy lifting. The first one here is the kind of like a Neve style EQ. I'm boosting 110 at for 2 dB and boosting 10k around 2 dB. And the rest two are parallel compressors. I, the first is the stretcher. This is the Will If setting, but he's doing that makes that 100%. I'm only doing 50%. Oh. Not a huge difference though. It just make a kick and snare pumping a little more. And the second one is the API. This is my usual setting. Attack around point 1 and ratio at 10 and release as fast as possible. And threshold adjust to taste. It's doing around 60 dB of compression on snare, and I'm only blending for 20%. It's kind of aggressive if doing that for you it sounds like. Yeah, very pumping. And oh, and there are another parallel compressor on shelves. This is the trick I stole from Chris, the guy who makes Issues, my favorite band, and the Sipping with Sirens, those legendary post-hardcore bands. This is his settings. He's doing stereo linking and at 20 to 1 ratio and attack and release at noon. And with the off. Not much of a difference. You just bring some life into it, and let's listen to the kick with the plugin on and plugin off. Not much of a difference though. First thing is Pro Q3 cutting high pass around 30 Hz and cutting some junk out of 300 Hz and cutting some unwanted noise or frequency around 1.5k, and I find it too clicky, so I cut some 6k again. And second, we're doing some compression. Yeah, we're doing like 10 dB of compression here, and we're cutting some high end from the kick. You can see it's a shelf and cutting at 1.5 kilohertz for us like 1 point something dB, and we're boosting 3k for 3.5 dB, quite a lot. I find uh, it's a pleasant attack frequency. Like AK is to 2000 special chord, that kind of click. I don't want that. We're cutting some 300 Hz again and boosting fundamental at 6.7. And then we are using soft to tape so to kind of tame the peaks and give it some low end boost. Yeah, and last but not least, where I'm doing cutting even more peak of the kick. Not much of difference though, and let's take a look at snare. Quite a lot of transformation, and let's bypass the reverb first. First of all, I found the snare kinda a little bit too boxy, so I cut some boxiness at 500 Hz and turn the ringiness around 300 hertz. Yeah, as you can hear, it's much cleaner now. And I'm cutting off some low end and do some usual high pass, low pass around 15K. And second, I'll put the transit designer to the last because that's the stuff I decided to add after the compression and all the other stuff. The second is the compression. I'm not doing anything at EQ, or maybe just boost a tiny bit at the fundamental 200 hertz, mainly for compression. Yeah, that's quite a lot. And I remember the next thing I add is Saturn. It's doing, it's shaving off some peaks, and I'm boosting low end quite a lot, 5 dB. The EQ band on in Saturn, I find it very useful for drums. I saw this trick from Joao, who run a legendary YouTube channel. I love his covers. Yeah, it kind of make the perceived loudness a little bit louder, but actually quieter in the dB over here. Or maybe you can check out here. And the next thing, I'm shaving even more peaks with the limiter. Yeah, as you can hear, that's quite a lot. And I remember next thing I add is the transit designer. This is Josh thing who is in Silosis. His mixing trick. I'm taking some attack out of my snare and add back some sustain to enforce the snare wire sounds. Yeah, make the snare sounds even a bit longer. And the next thing I add is the reverb. I'm using little plate over here. This is some pre-delay, and I'm using little plate at 1 second of decay, and fully the mix is full. And I'm taking off some low and then high end of it off from it. And this is the Dan Kornev trick. He's using this preset from the reverb and the width at 0 to make the snare fatter. Yeah, just little bit fatter. And in the mix, I felt the 5K is kind of too abrasive, so I cut some from it. But I find the snare is kind of dull, so I add back some high frequency around 10K. Yeah, as you can hear, this is kind of the abrasive area from 3K to 5K. And the next thing we're gonna take a look at is the room. I usually mix my tom last because I suck at mixing toms. And yeah, let's take a listen. So the first thing I do is the nollie thing to use a transit designer to take off the attack and add back some sustain. Yeah, quite a huge difference. And the next thing I do is take off some low ends. I'm using a low shelf to take some low end off, and I'm taking some muddy frequency around 300 hertz, mainly to make the snare kinda not as boxy as it should be. And here are some frequency to fix the harshness, abrasiveness from the cymbals. Yeah, the 4K thing is very abrasive in the cymbals in the room over here. And the next thing I do is Saturn. Yeah, I take even more out of the low end, and I'm doing a lot of saturation over here. And the next thing I do is the reverb. This is the same reverb setting as the snare. Yeah, kind of make the room a little bit bigger. And the next thing is the Q3. I find the abrasiveness around 2.5K is kind of too much, and even take out more low end. Yeah. Next thing is cymbals. You can see I'm doing a lot on the cymbals. Maybe kind of an overkill, but whatever. Yeah, less abrasive and little bit brighter. So the first thing is Pro Q3 to kind of cut some low end, um, and take some boxiness around 750, and cut some cymbal harshness around 6K. And this is quite an important move in my cymbal mix because I find in from 3K to 4K in the rhythm and cymbals is kind of abrasive. Yeah, and the next thing I do is to limit the shells because I don't really need that much shells in my cymbals. And next thing is pawn shop compressor to compress it to hell. You can see a setting here, and I'm not doing much to the EQ over here, and I'm changing the resistor and other stuff. You can just copy. I try to keep it not mess much, not to mess with the EQs in this, because you can hear if I change to carbon comp, it's much darker. So I choose the cleaner setting of this resistor, transistor, and other stuff. And the mix, I'm only doing around 40% over here. Is if I'm doing max, it will sound like this. Yeah, it would be kind of too pumping for my taste. So I'm only doing about around 40%. And the next thing I do is more EQ. I'm cutting some 1.3K and some 4.4K, and this is mainly for the hi-hat because I find the hi-hat in this drum library a little bit too harsh. Yeah, kind of make the cymbals even more at the back, if you will. And next thing is even more cymbals, even more EQs. This is the thing I talked about before to cut around 3K to 4K to make it not as harsh. And I'm boosting around 3K again. This is kind of like a traditional move. Noli uses this in his Periphery 5 mixing tutorial on the vocal to make a narrow cut and the white boost at the same time. It will sound like this. Yeah, even less abrasive. And this is the Josh thing, the guy from Cytosis. I saw a lot of mixing tricks from him. He said if the cymbals are too thin, then maybe made a white boost around 1K to make it not as thin. Yeah, and the last thing is EQ, and this is the same thing as I said before, a boost at 1K, and I find it kind of too boxy around here if I made a boost, so I cut it here. Yeah, maybe I'm over EQing, but it kind of works in this mix. And in the brass bus, I'm using Flatline 2 to cut the snare peaks. Not doing much. And the next thing is Sooth 2. I'm using a knowledge preset here. Yeah, mainly cutting the symbols, the harshness of the symbols. And before we move on to toms, let's take a look at the drum library I'm using. I'm using P5 for the symbols and P4 for the shells. Maybe you'll wonder why am I running two P5 here, because I'm kind of mirroring to swap the left and right of the second P5 library to make this right crash. So now I have two right crash, oops, and two left crashes. And the symbols at all the channels are at unity over here in the P5, and same for this one. And in this, I kinda calibrate to make the room as as uh, as they should in P5. So I kinda run the P4 and P5 to see how to make the rooms work with P5. If you get the idea, whatever. Let's take a look at the leveling. I'm cutting some overheads from all the library here, and I kind of want the snare to be very loud in the room, as a modern recording should be. So I'm boosting here at 7.3 dB, and I don't really need that much low end in the room, so I'm cutting 1.7 dB over here. And for toms, I kind of want them loud, but not as loud as the snare. So I'm boosting around 3 dB over here. And for the red mic, I kinda left at unity. Oops. Yeah, and let's move on to toms. Let me find the tom section. Yeah, here. And let's bypass the reverb first. Yeah, it's the same setting as the snare, without the corner trick. Let's bypass this. Let's take a listen at the rat tom. And yeah, the toms in P4s are kind of boxy but very deep. I like this very much. Yeah, so the first thing I do is to cut some moussiness at 300 hertz and the kind of boxiness at 1K, and even more at 588 hertz. And I'm cutting some low end of the rack tom and cutting some high end of it off from it, because I find uh, generally in shells the over 15K are kind of like harsh, or they can fight with the cymbals too much. Oops. Yeah, and for floor toms, there's I think I just copied the rack tom settings except the cut over here, and I move this back from maybe here to here to kind of cut the unwanted low end from the floor tom. You can see the Nolly mixing video of the P5. He usually like cut the harmony of the floor tom and kick. Like if the fundamental is at 70 for the kick, he will cut some 140. This is the similar trick. And for the another floor tom, yeah, I believe it's the same setting except the low end is much lower, so I adjust this further back. Oops. Yeah, and there are a lot going on the bus. So the first thing I put is the limiter over here. just make it not as pokey and bring some body back. And the next thing that I find is it's kind of too boxy again, and the 1.6K click is not the click I want from the toms. The next thing is EQ again. Yeah, I'm cutting even more boxiness from the toms. And the next thing I do is even more EQ. Yeah, I'm even cutting a lot of the boxiness of the toms. Yeah, and there's the river I mentioned again. Yeah, so that's basically the drum mix of of the library. Yeah, I like this mix very much. The next thing let's take a look at is bass. Bass, yeah, bass. You can see there are a lot of stuff going on here. And let's bypass them all. I'm using the punk bass over here, the DI settings, and I didn't touch any of these knobs. Yeah, it's just the DI sound. And the first thing I put is the bass and bass amp emulation. I'm using the ultra high and ultra low here and bright input, and the setting is just like this. And I didn't touch the cap. There are only two caps though. Yeah, just make it sound like a bass. And the next thing I add is the compressor. You can copy the setting here. Just attack unknown and the fastest release. Let's take a listen. Make the play more consistent and a tiny bit louder. And the next thing I add is the saturation. It kind of works like your distortion pedal for bass, and I'm only using around 500 hertz and above, and I'm cutting some low end out of it, and I'm cutting some the unwanted low mid. And for the high end, I'm using the heavy saturation uh, type of distortion and at 81%. And the mix, this is kind of important because the mix is not on full. Yeah, I find it too abrasive if the mix is on full. And then the next thing I do is I cut some harshness out of the high end of this, and I'm taking off some low end. It kind of fights with the kick too much. Yeah, this and this. And the next thing I do is the SSL channel strip. I'm taking a lot of the high end over here. And I'm boosting 1.5K using the shelf. And boosting some 1.3, oh wow, 1.3K. I thought I boost around 800. That's interesting. And I'm taking some low and a mid frequency around 400 by 6 dB, and I'm boosting 100 using a shelf. Yeah, kind of make it it kind of gives it kind of a grind to mix with the guitar well. And the next thing I do is even more compression. Yeah, this attack and release, and I'm using 3 to 1 to kind of take off the uh, peak just a bit. Yeah, and the next thing I do is the flat line to cut off the transients to make it not as pokey as it should be. Yeah, and next thing I do is Saturn because I don't have the waves are based. It kind of do the same trick, I think. Yeah, makes the low end a lot thicker. And the next thing I do is the stereo widening trick. I'm using the chorus over here, and it's on full and just blending in tiny bit. And before that, I'm using Pro Q3 to cut some low end off. Just a bit wiser. Yeah, cool. And let's look at the rest of the plugins. And the next thing I do is the Pro Q3. I find this 1.3 kind of abrasive, and I'm boosting 800 over here. Not a lot of difference though. Maybe I don't really have to use this. And the next thing I do is, these two are kind of my sidechain trick I stole from the URM Academy, the Bill Murray one. I'm using this to duck the kick, and use this to duck the sub drop. Yeah, nothing fancy though. Let's take a listen without any of this to see how the space interact with the kick. Oops. And without this. Yeah, just make the low end not as busy. And let's take a listen at guitars. Oops. Yeah, there a lot of stuff going on here. So for the guitar, I'm using the free amp from the ML Sound Lab, and let's take a listen at the raw guitar sound. Already sounds great though. Here are the settings, you can go ahead and copy it. And for the caps, I'm using the default cap. Nothing fancy, I'm not using the GGC stuff or the broken stuff. I'm using only a 57 and a mega oversize. And for the pedal board, I'm using this the tube screamer to boost it. Yeah, so the first thing I do is to EQ it. Yeah, kind of insane to do this much on the EQ though. Yeah, but the EQ make it not as harsh, I think. And this trick I saw from Josh himself, the Josh from Silosis, is to cut around 10 dB at 6K. Yeah, make it not as harsh, and cut some around 2.3. This is his trick to make it not as harsh. And the rest just to mix though. Yeah, and the next thing I do is the AIP from Cornef. I love this plugin. I'm doing some cut around 300, and I'm boosting just a tiny bit around 89 hertz, and cut some around 2k, and brightening it up around 8k. Let's bypass this and even bypass this. Yeah, and I'm not using the proprietary signal processing over here. The EQ aren't doing much though, and the important thing is here. I'm cutting 3.2, and if this is set at 2, I also cut to 6.4 by around 4 dB, and bring some high end back to it. So that's all for this plugin. Yeah, make it brighter. And here I'm even cutting more. Yeah, because I find the 4.3 kind of too harsh, and this frequency are kind of abrasive. And using Soothe 2 over here, and this is a Nolly preset to cut some harshness. And even more EQ, yeah, because I find I find it too boxy or honky, so I using the Nolly trick to cut and boost at the same frequency. Not doing much though, probably can delete that. Yeah, that's all for the rhythm guitar. Let's take a listen without plugins. And with the plugins. Yeah, just make it sit even better. And for the leads over here, they are going through the same bus, the rhythm guitar bars and the whole guitar bus. I'm using M grooves over here, and I'm using the same setting I believe as the rhythm guitar. Yeah, cool. And I'm using Floodlight to cut off some peak. And the Valhalla delay to add reverb, the play reverb. I love this one to make it more spacey, if that makes sense. Yeah, cool. Cool. And this one is kind of my special trick to make the guitar sounds deeper. Yeah, I pitched down the guitar 12 cents to make it an octave lower, and I'm using the same settings as the rhythm guitar. But before that, I put an EQ to cut some honkiness out of it, because the lower octave guitar only here to make it thicker, so I need a low end, but not much the high end noises. We can take a listen without it. And with it. Now kind of make the low end deeper, and I'm doing the same EQ moves as the rhythm guitar, and the same for this one. Yeah, make it deeper and with it in the whole mix. Yeah, make it thicker if you will. And next thing I do is the this one, I believe. Yeah, it's the architect style ambience, and it's kind of not as uh, complicated as you think. And this is the DI guitar. And first thing I do is to cut some peak off from it. Yeah, you can see it's quite aggressive over here. And the next thing I do is the Valhalla reverb. I'm using a hash effect to make it kinda even wider. Let's compare after that. So this is doing some delay, and this is the Hydra Harp preset over here. I didn't touch any of the settings. And compared to only with the only with it. Yeah, I found if with the hash effect, it kind of sounds even wiser. And the next thing I do is cut some low end, and cut some abrasiveness around 3.5 and some high end. And this is kind of the knowledge thing. You can see his P4 mixing video in the synth or the section later on. He cut some mid frequency around 650, 70, 6, 500 and 700. Let's take a listen without off, with him off. This is the more important move. It cause some unwanted low end. They will build up in your mix very quickly and cause some muddiness over here and the abrasiveness over here. Yeah, it kind of sounds like a pad, not a guitar, and this is the important move. Yeah, just position your pad sound like guitar even in the back, and this is just automation, nothing fancy, and this is the cutting even more low end. And this is to cut the fundamental of the guitar to make it not as loud as it should be, because this area, all the instruments kind of fight this area. It's like the bass should be kind of peak around this, and also the guitar. Yeah, that's all. And I hope you enjoy this. If you have any questions, please leave them in the comments.